We hear it all the time, right?
Yeah.
Kids who can understand their emotions, get along with others, they do better in school.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost like common sense at this point.
And there's tons of research to back that up.
Right, tons.
Going all the way back to Blair's work in 2002, even earlier, Rothbard and Jones in 98.
Yeah,
And so many studies since then.
absolutely, yeah.
It's just clear.
Mm.
These social emotional skills, they're really tied to academic success.
Hmm.
And the flip side is also well established.
Yeah.
When kids struggle with these things, with managing their feelings, getting along with their friends, their peers,
Right.
it can actually hold them back
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
their learning and development.
Hmm.
Sometimes with really big long-term
Yeah,
consequences.
yeah.
If you think about the work of Rice in 2007 and others,
Right.
it kind of paints a clear picture.
Yeah.
And this has led to a really big push for social emotional learning programs in schools,
It has.
which really gained traction in the late 90s.
Yeah.
So for this deep dive, the source that you shared with me is this paper,
Okay.
and it's titled Promoting Desirable Outcomes Among Cultural and Ethnically Diverse Children in Social Emotional Learning Programs. A multi-level heuristic model.
Okay.
So just from that title, you can already tell we're not just asking, does SEL work, yes or no?
No.
Our mission here is to really kind of get into how culture and social factors affect how well these programs work,
Yeah.
especially for kids from diverse backgrounds.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's not just a simple yes or no, is it?
Definitely not. No,
It's more nuanced than that.
that's more nuanced.
We
Yeah.
need to kind of unpack what's really going on.
Exactly. Yeah.
And to help us with that, the authors introduced this concept of sociocultural competence
Okay.
as the lens to look at SEL.
Yeah.
And this isn't just about race and ethnicity, is it?
No, no, no.
It seems like a much broader idea.
It is, yeah.
So what all does it include?
So sociocultural competence, as it's used in this paper, covers, it's a really broad spectrum of factors.
Okay.
You mentioned race and ethnicity, of course,
Yeah.
but also socioeconomic status, or SCS,
Okay.
gender, whether a child has a disability,
Yeah.
even where they live geographically.
Wow.
So it really acknowledges that a child's development
Mm.
is influenced by all these different interconnected aspects
Okay.
of their social and cultural environment.
Okay.
This perspective actually aligns really well with ecological theories,
Yeah.
like the ones developed by Bronfenbrenner and Weisner,
Okay.
which emphasize how, all these different layers of a child's world,
Mhm.
from their immediate family to their wider community,
Yeah.
really interact and shape who they become.
Okay.
So, think about it this way.
Yeah.
A child isn't just this isolated individual,
Right.
right? They exist within all these layers of influence: their family, their neighborhood, their school, the broader culture. And Bronfenbrenner and Weisner's work really reminds us
Yeah.
that to truly understand a child,
Yeah.
we have to look at how all those layers interact.
Okay, that makes sense. So let's get down to it. The question we're trying to answer today is,
Yeah.
how do these sociocultural factors, all these different things about a child's background,
Yeah.
really affect their social and emotional development?
Right.
And then building on that, how can we design and implement these SEL programs
Yeah.
to be more effective, more impactful
Yeah.
for all children,
Right.
by taking these factors into account?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's really the heart of what we're trying to understand.
It is. Yeah.
So let's dive into some of these sociocultural variables.
Okay.
Let's start with race and ethnicity.
Okay. Like.
And the paper brings up some really interesting findings.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them, maybe even a little bit surprising.
Yeah.
For example, there's some research that suggests that African-American children
Mm.
might be perceived as less pro-socially competent
Yeah.
compared to their Caucasian-American peers.
Mm-hmm.
But the authors are quick to point out that the context really matters
It does. Yeah.
when we're observing these behaviors.
Absolutely.
Why is
Yeah.
that?
Well, what's really interesting here is the idea that, what we consider pro-social behavior
Okay.
and even how it's expressed
Yeah.
can vary quite a bit,
Okay.
right, across different cultures,
Mhm.
or even in response to different kinds of needs.
Yeah. Okay.
So the study by McAvoy and Leff, this was interesting,
Yeah.
showed that low-income African-American students in urban environments actually showed
Okay.
a really strong sense of empathy
Okay.
and a willingness to help their peers who were facing hardship.
Yeah.
And so, their pro-social behavior was maybe a bit more targeted,
Okay.
more specific
Okay. Yeah.
to certain situations.
So maybe our idea of pro-social is too limited.
Right. What might look like a lack of prosocial behavior from one perspective could
Yeah.
actually be a really strong display of it
Yeah, okay.
within another context.
Okay.
And this is, I mean, this is a critical insight
It is.
into how cultural background
Yeah.
really shapes these things.
Even these things that we think are so basic,
Right.
like social skills.
Absolutely, yeah.
So we have to be careful not to, like, put everyone in the same box.
Exactly. We have to be very careful about imposing a single cultural standard
Yeah.
on what this looks like.
Right, exactly. And it's not consistent, right,
Yeah.
across the research.
No.
I mean, some studies haven't found any real difference in pro-social behavior
Yeah,
between, African American and Caucasian American children.
right.
And there's even some research that says belonging to a minority group can actually sometimes
Okay.
be linked to higher levels of pro-social behavior, which is kind of interesting.
It is, yeah.
You wouldn't necessarily expect that.
No, you wouldn't. It really speaks to the complexity of this issue,
Yeah.
and the danger of just kind of making these broad generalizations. Things like strong community ties,
Okay.
a greater reliance on kind of collective support systems.
Yeah.
Within some minority communities, that could actually be a factor
Okay.
contributing to those findings.
Right.
It's a good reminder that things that we often see as risks
Mm.
don't always automatically translate to negative outcomes.
Okay.
Resilience plays a huge role in development.
It does. Okay, so when we turn our attention to Latino American children,
Okay.
the paper highlights some different challenges.
Mm-hmm.
Things like feeling less of a sense of belonging at school
Yeah.
and navigating language barriers.
Right.
Those sound like things that could definitely impact social emotional well-being.
They absolutely can. Yeah.
How so?
Well, feeling like you don't belong at school can really hinder positive social interactions
Yeah.
and your overall engagement in the learning environment.
Makes sense.
And language barriers can create significant hurdles in forming friendships
Yeah.
and just generally interpreting social cues.
Okay.
The paper also, this is interesting, it kind of delves into this idea of acculturation,
Okay.
the process of adapting to a new culture,
Right.
which can be both a protective factor and a risk factor,
Oh, wow. Okay.
right? It can open up new opportunities and resources,
Yeah.
but it can also create tensions
Yeah.
between different cultural norms and expectations.
It's like living in two worlds almost.
It is, yeah.
The paper also touches on Native American children
Okay.
and various Asian American subgroups.
Yeah.
And points out a lack of research specifically focused on Native American children,
Mm-hmm.
despite clear indications of SEL challenges within those communities.
Right.
And for some Asian American subgroups, there are high reports of internalizing emotions and experiencing stress in peer relationships.
Yeah.
So it feels like these groups are sometimes like overlooked
They are, yeah.
in the broader conversation
100%, yeah.
about SEL.
And that's a really critical point.
It is.
I mean, the scarcity of research on the social emotional development of Native American children in particular
Yeah.
is a significant gap in our understanding,
It is.
especially when you consider historical trauma and the unique cultural contexts
Yeah.
that influence their experiences.
Mhm.
Similarly, the term Asian American
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
encompasses a huge diversity of cultures and experiences.
Absolutely.
So grouping all those subgroups together can really mask important differences
Yeah.
in their social emotional strengths and challenges.
Yeah.
And, the tendency for some Asian American children to internalize emotions
Yeah.
also underscores the need for culturally sensitive approaches to mental health.
Right. Absolutely. And
Yeah.
then there's this interesting idea that the cultural norms of a child's background can actually influence
Okay.
how their teachers perceive their behavior
Yeah.
in the class. So what might be seen as totally typical in one cultural context
Mm-hmm.
could be misinterpreted or even seen as problematic in another.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Give me an example.
Well, like, what constitutes respectful behavior toward adults?
Okay.
How assertiveness is expressed, even the way emotions are displayed,
Yeah.
can differ so much across cultures.
Yeah.
So if a teacher's idea of appropriate behavior is based on one cultural framework,
Yeah.
they might misinterpret a child's behavior.
Yeah.
That's actually stemming from a totally different cultural norm,
Okay.
which could lead to unfair judgments or interventions.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, a teacher might be operating
Yeah.
from one sociocultural framework and misinterpret a child's behavior that's totally normal
Yeah.
from another.
Okay.
And, that's why this idea of sociocultural competence in SEL is so important.
It is. Okay.
Yep.
Let's shift gears a little bit
Okay.
and talk about socioeconomic status,
Okay.
or SES,
Right.
and family income level. Yeah. And it seems like the research shows a pretty consistent link
Mm-hmm.
between lower SES and lower levels of social emotional competence in kids,
Right.
which, I mean, kind of intuitively makes sense, right?
It does. Yeah.
Because, there's more stress,
Yeah.
less access to resources,
Yeah.
but often comes with poverty.
Absolutely.
So is that what the data shows generally?
Yeah. I mean, generally the data does support that correlation.
Okay.
And, research has even linked those early experiences of poverty to increases in externalizing behaviors
Yeah.
in some racial and ethnic groups.
Yep.
Things like more frequent household moves,
Yeah.
lower levels of parental education.
Hmm.
These can also contribute to things like anxiety and social withdrawal in young kids. I mean, just the overall chronic stress
Yeah.
associated with living in those conditions can impact a child's developing capacity to, understand and regulate their emotions.
It makes sense. But the paper also introduces another interesting perspective.
It does, yeah.
Right. Which is that socially competent behavior in kids from low SES backgrounds might actually be more focused on
Okay.
the relationships, their connections
Yeah,
within their community,
absolutely.
which is really interesting, right?
It is, yeah.
Because it challenges some of our assumptions.
It does, yeah.
So how does that work?
Well, the research hints that, in some contexts, social competence might be expressed more through relational skills,
Okay.
and that this focus on the collective well-being of the community,
Yeah.
rather than just solely on these, individualistic achievement.
Okay.
So, that actually challenges the way we traditionally measure pro-social behavior,
Yeah.
which
Right.
could be biased towards, more middle-class norms and expectations.
Right.
Also, those relational competencies
Yeah.
might be more sensitive indicators
Okay.
of potential social-emotional difficulties
Okay.
than just a broad measure of SES alone.
Okay. Interesting. So moving on to gender, it seems like there's some pretty consistent findings, at least generally speaking.
Mm-hmm.
With girls, they often tend to express more positive emotions,
Right.
and they show better emotion regulation skills
Yeah.
than boys.
Right. Broadly speaking, yes. I mean, the research does kind of indicate those general trends,
Okay.
but it's really important to remember those are just averages.
Of course.
And there's a ton of natural variation within each gender.
Mm-hmm.
And, these differences can also be influenced by context,
Right.
like whether adults or peers are present, the
Yeah.
type of emotion,
Yeah.
the quality of their relationships. So lots of factors at play.
And we also see teachers in their assessments
Mm-hmm.
often rating preschool boys
Mm-hmm.
as being less socially competent and more prone to, anger and anxiety.
Yeah.
And then we also see these differences in how boys and girls engage in free play
Right.
as they get older.
Yeah.
Do these kind of go together?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, those observations in school settings
Yeah.
really do align with some of the broader gender differences we see, right, in emotional expression and regulation.
Yeah.
And it's likely that socialization
Yeah.
and just societal expectations
Yeah.
around gender roles
Right.
play a big part in shaping those behaviors
Yeah.
from a very young age.
And the paper also brings up differences in emotion knowledge,
Right?
with girls often showing a better understanding of emotions
Yeah.
compared to boys.
Right.
But it brings up this really interesting point.
Yeah.
Is that a difference in skill?
Right.
Or is it more about, gender roles and what's acceptable
Yeah.
for boys and girls to express?
Yeah.
Or even understand about emotions?
It's a great question. I mean, while girls may show a greater, what we call explicit knowledge about emotions,
Yeah.
it doesn't necessarily mean that boys are inherently less emotionally aware.
Right.
It could just be how they're encouraged
Yeah.
to engage with and express their emotions from a young age.
Right.
So lots to think about there.
It is. And finally, we need to discuss developmental disabilities.
Yeah.
The paper highlights these really high rates
Yeah.
of social emotional problems
Right.
experienced by children with disabilities
Mm.
and the challenges they face
Right.
in understanding emotional cues
Yeah.
during social
Oh,
interactions.
absolutely, yeah.
And this could be a real problem, right?
It can, yeah. I mean, these children often encounter really unique and complex challenges
Yeah.
in social situations,
Right.
in understanding those subtle emotional cues.
Yeah.
And that, unfortunately, can really make existing social emotional difficulties even worse,
Yeah.
you know? But it is encouraging. There are programs like the Incredible Years Parent Training
Okay.
that have shown some promise in reducing behavioral problems
Okay.
for these preschoolers.
That's good to hear.
It is, yeah.
And the paper makes this really important point about how disability intersects
Mm-hmm.
with other sociocultural factors.
Yeah, right.
Right? That different cultures
Yeah,
can have totally different beliefs and ways of understanding disabilities.
they can, yeah.
So this could really impact how families
Mm-hmm.
of children with disabilities
Right.
engage with and benefit from
Yeah.
these SEL programs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why is that?
Well, cultural beliefs and practices can profoundly influence
Yeah.
how disabilities are even perceived, right, in a community,
Yeah.
whether certain behaviors are interpreted as symptoms,
Yeah.
and even the level of acceptance and social support that families receive.
Mm-hmm.
So taking that cultural lens into account is just absolutely vital when we're designing these interventions
Yeah.
to make sure they're truly supportive.
Okay, so let's talk about the home environment
Okay.
and neighborhood context.
Right.
I mean, it's so clear that culture plays a huge role
It does, yeah.
in how we experience, express, and understand emotions.
Absolutely.
And the paper gives some interesting examples across different groups.
Yeah, it does. What's really striking is that diversity in emotion socialization practices across different cultures.
Okay.
For example, the emphasis on openly expressing a wide range of emotions.
Yeah.
That's common in Caucasian American cultures.
Okay.
Can really contrast
Yeah.
with the more reserved approach you might see in some African American or Asian American households.
Right, okay.
And these deeply ingrained cultural norms shape how children learn to understand their own feelings within their families,
Yeah.
which can have this big knock-on effect
Yeah.
on their experiences in these school programs.
And it seems like a lot of the research looking at minority parents
Mm-hmm.
and how they teach their kids about emotions
Right.
has focused mainly on low-income families,
It has, yeah.
which might not be the whole picture.
Right. That's a really important limitation to acknowledge. I mean, minority groups are incredibly diverse.
They are?
And parenting styles, values, practices
Yeah.
can vary so much,
Yeah.
even within those groups,
Right.
based on things like socioeconomic status,
Yeah.
education level, individual experiences.
Right.
So drawing these broad conclusions based solely on those studies
Yeah.
can lead to these
Yeah.
incomplete and potentially culturally insensitive understandings and interventions.
Yeah. And then this other interesting idea,
Okay.
what might seem like problematic parenting practices
Mm-hmm.
from one perspective
Yeah.
could actually be adaptive
Right?
or even protective
Absolutely.
in a different context,
Yeah.
especially in high-risk environments.
Right.
So why is that?
Well, you have to consider the whole context,
Yeah.
right? The ecological context
Yeah.
that families are operating in.
Yeah.
So, for example, in neighborhoods
Mm.
with high levels of violence or instability, very strict parental monitoring, maybe limited neighborhood contact,
Okay.
while it might seem overly restrictive in
Mhm.
other environments,
Yeah.
could be crucial for safety and well-being.
Okay.
So SEL programs have to be mindful of these adaptive strategies that
Definitely.
families develop.
Okay, let's think about the school environment itself.
Okay.
And it seems like location can play a big role,
Yeah, it can.
right? With schools in urban areas often facing different challenges
Right.
compared to suburban schools,
Yeah.
both in terms of, resources
Yeah.
and the types of problems students are dealing with.
Absolutely.
What are we talking about here?
Well, I mean, the disparities in resources and opportunities
Yeah.
between urban and suburban schools are unfortunately very well documented.
Yeah.
Kids attending urban schools might face more exposure to community violence,
Okay.
other stressors,
Mm-hmm.
while kids in suburban settings might experience, more internalizing problems or pressures.
Okay.
And this was interesting.
Yeah.
The paper pointed out that Caucasian American students in urban schools
Okay.
seem to be at a higher risk for poorer outcomes,
Oh, wow.
which suggests, a really complex interplay of factors at play there.
Okay, that's interesting. So even the racial and ethnic composition of a school itself
Yeah,
can have an impact
right.
on kids' behavior.
Yeah.
And things like peer victimization.
Right.
What do we know there?
Well, research does suggest that attending a school with greater diversity
Okay.
can have both positive and negative effects
Okay.
on behavior.
Okay.
And these effects can actually vary
Yeah.
depending on a child's own background.
Okay.
So it's complex.
Yeah.
And while some might argue that the school environment should be an equalizer,
Yeah.
the reality is that resource disparities
Yeah.
and other systemic factors
Right.
can create uneven playing fields
Yeah.
and influence outcomes for students.
So all of this leads us to this question.
Yeah.
Do these SEL programs actually have different levels of effectiveness
Right.
or different kinds of effects
Yeah.
on different groups of kids
Right.
based on those factors?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And the paper reviews a lot of studies in this area.
It does. Yeah.
And it seems like the findings are pretty mixed,
They are.
especially when you look at race and ethnicity.
Right. Yeah.
So what are some examples of that?
Well, some studies evaluating programs like resolving conflict creatively
Okay.
and tools of the mind
Yeah.
have reported these positive effects
Okay.
that seem to generalize across groups.
Oh.
But other studies have shown different outcomes where the program works better for some groups than others.
Okay.
Or in some cases, a lack of clear data for certain subgroups,
Okay.
and that lack of disaggregated data
Yeah.
or small sample sizes
Yeah.
make it really hard
It does.
to draw firm conclusions
Yeah.
about, which programs are most effective for whom.
So it sounds like, gender differences are reported more often
They are, yeah.
in these evaluations.
Yeah.
With some programs showing more success for boys in some areas, girls in others.
Yeah.
What are some examples of that?
So you've got things like the Steps to Respect program,
Okay.
Raising Healthy Children,
Yeah.
Second Step.
Okay.
These have all shown gender-specific outcomes.
Okay.
What's interesting is that some of those longer-term interventions
Yeah.
that focus on academic outcomes,
Okay.
like the high-scope Perry preschool program,
Okay.
have also shown different patterns of impact
Okay.
for boys and girls
Right.
in the long run.
Okay.
So, these findings really emphasize that.
Yeah.
We need to consider gender as a potential factor.
Right. What about SES?
Yeah, so the findings related to SES are also pretty varied and complex.
Okay.
Some programs, like the responsive classroom approach, have shown differences in their effectiveness,
Okay.
depending on the level of family risk factors.
Okay.
Other programs, like PAT-THS,
Okay.
have sometimes shown stronger positive effects for kids
Okay.
from more advantaged backgrounds.
Okay.
Although those effects can be moderated by gender, interestingly.
Okay.
And it's also worth noting, the long-term positive impacts
Okay.
that early childhood interventions like high-scope Perry
Yeah.
have shown specifically for low-income African-American children.
Okay.
So, it's a mixed bag.
Yeah, it sounds like geographic location is another factor
It is, yeah.
that hasn't been studied as much
Yeah.
in isolation.
No, it hasn't.
Although some programs,
Mm-hmm.
like PAT-THS and the Open Circle program, have made comparisons
They have, yeah.
between urban and rural settings.
Right.
So what do we know?
Well, while a lot of studies include kids from rural areas,
Okay.
it's often tough to isolate the specific impact.
Yeah.
Yet
Yeah.
location